In putting together this instructional series, we came to the realization that there was a pretty big design jump from massing to formalized concept. So we wanted to interject a short lecture that bridges the gap between the fabricating of the massing elements and the resolving of a design concept. This begins with the idea of balance and learning to do something that designers don't often do well, be analytical in their thought process. In the academy, I want students to learn to manage and actually love the conflict between two modes of design thinking, analytical and visceral. Design students often learn the mode of visceral design thinking quite easily, responding to form, scale, proportion, and materiality. But they don't always respond well to analytical data, building performance, the integrity of design elements, and the response to both users and their environment. Data to the designer is unfortunately often informative, but not actually formative to the design process itself. So this is something that we have to change, but we can't really rewire the thought process of a student, flipping a switch and turning a bowling ball into a boat just so it can float along. But we can change the environment. We can change the sea of data around us to make it approachable, engaging, and informative, buoyant even. So we always need to be working within a process that moves us along gracefully in these two modalities of design thinking. Tim Brown, in his book Change by Design, discusses three overlapping spaces of a design project, being an inspiration space in which insights are gathered from every possible source, an ideation space in which those insights are translated into ideas, and an implementation space in which the best ideas are developed. Navigating and understanding these phases through a good process allows for overlapping. That is, just because implementation has started doesn't mean inspiration should come to an end. Iteration through creating a mode of editing that always builds on both successful elements, as well as the ones that stink, and a sense of criticality that continually addresses the project goals in every space of the process. Often, we desire this process to be neat and linear, a 12-step system to building a design. We want to make this process universal and quantifiable, but in reality, that will never happen. As a designer, we are better served to not think in a linear path, but to see the whole plate of spaghetti and understand what each twist and turn represents. The collaboration of an analytical and visceral design thinking process to push, pull, and inform the actual design, allowing us to navigate a messy process with graceful and implicit connections. To do this effectively, we need to use a very good set of tools that allows us to work in a way that embraces the data needed and the design desired. So, speaking of design inspiration, I've been looking at a lot of dinosaurs on this project, and that means my 5-year-old daughter has been drawing a lot of dinosaurs while working on this project. And I don't really know what an Eoraptor is, but it goes beyond the pride of a father to say it's just so freaky cool. There is a funny system to her drawing lately, and it looks something like a wire. And it seems as if she doesn't even pick the pencil up through most of the course of drawing, and that builds something interesting to me. A strong sense of angle, line, and space that translates into an interesting formal arrangement. It's very visceral, a simple instinctual response to this dinosaur form that I'm seeing. At the same time, I've begun to build a set of parts to move and experiment with. What form and where are they at on the site? A set of tools that build a sense of play and exploration, not just something that involves design rigor. While going through this discovery phase, I'm also wanting to build a sense of empathy towards all the types of users on the project, the location, and the spaces. And for me, this is balanced with an environmental response as well, building a set of conditions to help rationalize both form and programmatic elements. From the format model used in the second module, Two of the quickest and most informative studies are found in wind and looking at wind and sun. In this case, looking at wind, the wind is in the warmer months, primarily coming from the south and southeast on the site. This will help keep some of the outdoor areas on the east side of the building cool, and it will also help passive cooling from the north to south along the shorter axis of the building. Immediately, this information suggests several key arrangements on the project. With the sun, which is just brutal on this site in the summer, the south and west edges, in particular, are going to need protection by leveraging the building form. Both of these pieces of data, sun and wind, are crucial to build a formal understanding, as a very high percentage of the overall building performance will be based off of the initial thinking on site and form. Solar panels, green roofs, triple pane low E glazing, and massive quantities of insulation are not our environmental saviors. Sure, they help, but getting the basics right set the stage so that we are not using individual elements to compensate for design deficiencies. As the design begins to take form, moving into the ideation space, I am still leveraging both analytical and visceral processes, resolving how to lay out programmatic elements based on an understanding of the different users of the space. In this case, museum visitors, museum staff, and the research team of geologists and paleontologists. I'm also still locked in on this idea of a formal cutting and folding arrangement to work with both the plan, elevation, and section of the design. Moving forward, it's time to begin to edit, building more implicit and direct connections between the different shapes and forms in the overall design. Multiple layers of tracing paper, and at this point beginning to discover and enhance the potential connection between programmatic elements, and resolving the layout, again while continuing to build the formal language. Understanding concepts discovered in the analysis phase to drive shading and glazing, while still working with form and line. The conceptual BIM model then begins to resolve the primary form with the addition of design details, while still engaging in the study of structural and enclosural systems to reinforce the design thinking. This process then leads us back to the primary goal of this series, fabrication, as it is time to begin fabricating the current design to develop a physical study model. This will move us into Module 3 of the exercises, taking a conceptual BIM model into the fabrication process.